dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice.
Hey, howdy, Rob.
Howdy, Matt. Good morning.
Good morning. It's Dungeon Master of None, and we're back with part 2 after a 3.5-year break since episode 11 of Dungeons and Data.
Yes, you've all been clamoring for this. We know you're very excited for us to discuss
No one wanted this.
numbers and data, but Matt and I both have, well, actually, I have a spreadsheet job. Matt used to have a spreadsheet job.
That's right, yeah.
It's so we love looking at spreadsheets, and so we've done that for you. We did this for you, friends.
Right.
And we're gonna talk about some data regarding Dungeons and Dragons and TTRPGs, role playing games. What are we looking at today, Matt?
Yeah, we've compiled a bunch of interesting data from social media, and of course we'll have a lot of caveats on how that data is also bad. But let's talk about the original social media. Rob, how are your games going?
They're going well. My as keen-eared listeners may know, I am running 2 games currently. I have a Cyberpunk Red game, which is a lot of fun. It has been a bit of a challenge to meet recently, so no major updates there, though it's as I have discussed, it's been fun playing this with my pivoting part of my D&D group to Cyberpunk, because they really have taken to Cyberpunk Red as a system. They really seem to have to get it and enjoy it, and so that's been a lot of fun. And as we discussed, I think 2 episodes ago, it's a little crunchy, it's a little hard to get right away, but once you start to overcome the initial hurdles, it's not too bad. So I'm really liking that. I also had my very first Invisible Sun session.
Ooh.
And for those of you who are not aware of what this is, and I don't know why you would be, because it's pretty obscure, but about...
As we'll discuss in the data, the numbers are not high for Invisible Sun.
I think 6 years ago, or maybe even 7, Monty Cook, our TTRPG auteur, put out a Kickstarter for what I would describe as his magnum opus, a immense RPG of truly massive proportions that came in two forms. One, a literal black box filled with materials and books and all kinds of neat widgets, and then a digital version, which Matt and I, or maybe just Matt, kickstarted. And it's immense. I have not actually counted the words, but there are like 4 full-length books and then a bunch of supplemental materials. And it's kind of hard to describe what it's about, but it's basically like magic, surrealism, and player-driven adventuring in an alternate magical reality that it's very like informed by like mysticism and Gnosticism and like late 19th century esoterics. It's wild stuff. And
You're awakened wizards that go to other planes of existence and like sip tea made of thoughts. And
that's a great way of describing
do a deal
it.
with a demon and then meet God, but not that God.
Not that God, right?
And,
You sit in a 1920s speakeasy bar that's actually the body of a giant demon, and you talk to a person whose head is actually a cloud of sparkling dust motes, and discuss trading the smell of elderberries for 10 crystal orbs. It's really like it's
the arbitrage opportunities are really great at this.
They're really I love it, and I never really thought that I would have a chance to run it because it's just so weird. But I have a group of players that is exactly right for this here in Portland, and so we had our first session, and character creation is really involved in Invisible Sun. It's not crunchy necessarily, but it is very there are a lot of like mechanical elements to it. You have to, when you are awakened as a Vizsla, a wizard, you realize that you've been living in the shadow, which is our world, the real world, the material world, which sucks and is awful. And you were, turns out your wizard was hiding there from a great interdimensional war. But then you have a neighborhood where you live, and you have neighbors, and you have a house, and all of these things. And so you work together with the other players to sort of flesh out who and what those things are, in addition to your mechanics, which, again, without going into too much detail, I'll probably do. Maybe we can do an episode on this, or I can do a bonus, because there's just a lot to talk about Invisible Sun. But without going into the mechanics, there's a bunch of cool stuff that influences who your Vizsla is, but then also you have these really essential connections to the world around you and to the other players. And so it was really fun, 2 to 3 hours of just sort of hashing this stuff out. I've really come around on enjoying involved character creation. I used to think that I really wanted to get through it to get to the play, that session zeros or involved character creation were kind of slowing things down. But now I'm like, you know what? Let's do it right. Let's take the time. And so this was an awful lot of fun. Here's some.
It sounds like maximum effort for maximum amount of enjoyment type of game.
That's how I feel about it. Yeah. Here's some sort of some things we came up with. One of my players' neighbors is an enormous stone nautilus named Charles, who's telepathic, and sits on the corner and just talks to people as they walk by. There's an alleyway that you can't find unless you are literally lost, where one of my players lives, because he has he's directionally challenged, and so in order to find his house he has to get lost. There's a bar called the War Immemorium, where people go to deposit their memories of the Great War. Its motto is always forget. It's yeah. This is just what we came up in our first session,
that sounds dope.
A weird shit. So I'll keep you updated, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm excited to do more. How about you, Matt? How are your games going?
My games are good. My Dungeons & Dragons game has cleared the most important hurdle, which is making it past the first 7 sessions, and people are still responding to scheduling emails.
People are still coming. That is a critical moment.
Now I'm feeling like a huge normie playing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition while you're playing Invisible Sun and Cyberpunk Red, but that's okay because we're still having a lot of fun. I was able to successfully transition away from always using very cool 3D printed miniatures, and no one said anything because I didn't have time to do it.
You set yourself up.
No one was disappointed. It was
good.
Absolutely fine. The players are. I have done your tactic of putting too many hooks in front of them, and they're now self-directing. And
nice.
A little bit of we had to work out a little bit of okay. I need you to tell me what the self-direction is going to be for next time. But it's just a kind of quick out of character conversation. Hey, so what is it? What is everyone doing next time?
This was so. Speaking of Invisible Sun, this is one of Monty Cook's big things he's always banging, is that the game is designed to be player driven,
right?
And my job is to facilitate that, but they are supposed to decide, where do you want to go, what do you want to do at every point. And that is I think a lot more games are like this, but Matt, I don't know if you agree, but I'm finding that even for experienced, motivated role players, this is kind of a difficult challenge. They often find themselves kind of a little adrift if you don't tell them exactly what to do or what's in front of them. But I think it's a good challenge. I think it's fun to put that in front of players and be look, it's up to you, and here's all these various things that you can approach, but you have to decide.
I think it's a debate that players think they want to have, and we definitely think that they want to have. The difficulty is that players are having a debate on such limited information.
Yeah.
It's just always well, they all seem kind of important and kind of interesting. How are we making this decision? And then sometimes the debates at my table end up being just kind of like arbitrary because one person's like, well, I have strong feelings about this. And everyone's like, well, they're all kind of take it or leave it for me. So, yeah. You got to have the problem is information, and you got to encourage your players to really be like, well, what do I know about this?
Right.
I can tell you more about any of these. You already know more than you think. Just let me just prompt me.
I think it's just different muscles. It's things that players aren't used to doing or used to a type of play that they're not necessarily as familiar with. But I don't think that it's impossible. I think that, once they get used to it, once you train them on like what they need to do to make those decisions, that it can be really interesting. But it is an entirely different type of play, and it requires some adjustment.
All right, Rob. Well, thanks for giving us updates on our games. That was fun. We've reached the 10-minute mark, so we should probably dive into...
Let's talk about the data.
The data. That's what we're here for. I'm not going to make a decision until we get some hard numbers. We're a data-driven podcast, as I hope you are all data-driven dungeon masters. And if you're not collecting data on your players, how are you making decisions that are
how could you possibly
logical?
make an informed decision if you're not gathering data, honestly?
Okay. So we've got a couple sources of data, but the first and maybe most substantive one is one that I've collected from a indie website called Reddit.com, the supposed front page of the internet. I was thinking, Rob, about Reddit because we're recording in July of 2023, and recently it basically collapsed, and I don't think it will probably ever recover. Did you notice this at all?
Yes, of course I did. I use Reddit a lot, unfortunately, for my sins. I have been a long-time Reddit subscriber. I was a Dig refugee,
so you were like there in the first 6 months. Of
I
Reddit
was,
or something.
and youngsters don't remember
embarrassing.
this. It is embarrassing. No, it's genuinely very. It's shameful. My Reddit account is 15 years old. It's funny because not only do youngsters not remember this, but also it seems like the people who run Reddit don't remember this. But the only reason it exists is because a website that was basically exactly the same, with upvotes, downvotes, comments, whatever, called Dig, D-I-G-G. I don't even remember what they did at this point. Added ads, changed the way that the front page worked. I don't even remember. But everyone got pissed and they moved to Reddit, which had just popped up as an alternative. And now Dig is a a daily newsletter. That's doing fine. Who cares? But the very obvious point is that nobody used Reddit because it was so amazingly good. They did that just because they were mad at Dig. And if Reddit sucks, which it is moving aggressively towards, they'll just go to another website that does the same thing, because that building a website that has upvotes, downvotes, and has topics is not impossible. Reddit's only value is that there are a lot of people there, and some of them are not awful. There is a lot of good information on Reddit. I am a member.
Find anything out. If I'm oh, what TV do I buy? I have to add TV reviews 2023 Reddit to my Google search, because Google doesn't provide anything useful.
And the thing that the owners are doing, the reason that this big revolt happened, is because they were suddenly made third-party apps and moderation more difficult. But again, the only value Reddit has is in its users. So I don't think a lot of my subreddits have not come back. I have been visiting a lot less often because it just leaves kind of a bad taste in my mouth. I didn't visit at all because one of the main places I visit and contribute to, Ask Historians, had just gone dark. They're back in sort of a limited fashion now. But anyway, all of this is to say that who knows how useful this information will be going forward. Reddit may be in its death spirals as we speak.
Right. That's why I was thinking this is the last chance to glean good information out of this website. I noticed Reddit in that sometimes standing in line getting groceries or at a bar, I will see someone looking at their phone and they're looking at Reddit. I'm oh, Reddit is pretty popular. And one of the parts of Reddit is that Reddit has subreddits, and you can use a subreddit without subscribing, or you can subscribe, which means you get posts from that subforum in your feed. And I went through the subreddits that were related in any way to tabletop role-playing games and put together a count of their subscribers over a single 24-hour period in July 2023. Now, obviously, this is the most fast surface level way to collect data. I didn't collect how many posts and how many engagements there are for each one, but subscriber count, you do have to click a thing that says you are interested. People don't often probably unsubscribe to things, right? People forget, abandon an account and stuff. So there's all kinds of caveats for this data, right? It's from a particular time, so things that launched recently might not have a lot of subscribers. There's probably almost everyone who subscribes to a subreddit about Dungeon Master Advice might also subscribe to a subreddit about Pathfinder. So there's obviously a million double dips in data. Mm-hmm. With all that being said, this is very imperfect data, right? I'm sure there's a ton of people who subscribe to the 40K role-playing games Reddit who have never actually played a single session of a Warhammer 40K role-playing game. But there's some relationship to this data and what people are actually playing. So that's my thinking and caveats on our data.
Yeah, I think these are important caveats, and I don't know, nobody would take this, what we're about to talk about, too seriously. But it's worth noting that exactly what Matt said is that a lot of the really large subreddits are older, so they have a bunch of subscribers from either accounts that are no longer active or whatever, or people just never unsubscribed. Yeah. So don't take the more, and this would be very hard to do, and don't blame Matt for not going through the effort, but comparing the sort of active users would maybe be a little bit more useful, but I don't know that it's...
I looked at it, and it's basically, there's usually, except in a few cases, a relationship between the number of subscribers and active users, right? Yeah. There's a couple I found that had a good number of subscribers, but a relatively low number of active comments or upvotes. But normally they're just fairly correlated. So I was like, whatever, I'm just going to collect one number. I don't have time. I don't want to look at Reddit any more than possible.
Yeah, no. So again, if we had infinite time and resources, there's probably more sophisticated data analysis to do. But I think this is very useful, and I think it does say something about the state of RPGs, and I don't think it's going to surprise anybody what we're going to tell you about. But yeah,
sure. Let's stop with the big numbers.
The caveats. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, the caveats. Yeah, I think those are fairly obvious to anyone who's a little bit data literate. But now that that's out of the way, big numbers. There's a lot of different role-playing game related subreddits. I'm talking streams, supplements. I found around 150 of these. And it should be no surprise to anyone that the absolute biggest one is r/D&D with over 3 million subscribers. In fact, it has double the number of subscribers to a general role-playing game subreddit, which has 1.5 million.
Yeah. This is, and so Matt is not a big Reddit user. I am, and I have at one point or another subscribed to most of these just because I want to see what people are saying and what they're talking about. I'll tell you right now that what they're talking about sucks. And there's a bunch of morons on most of the big subreddits, and very rarely are there any useful conversations. And one interesting thing about especially the really big ones like RD&D, like Matt's talking about, is there's a constant internal battle about fan art. So if any subreddit does not say no fan art, then pretty quickly the front page becomes all fan art. And so there's this...
It seems natural, you're more likely to click on a thing that's a visual as opposed to a discussion post.
I mean, people are more likely to... I mean, again, if you work in marketing like I do, people are more likely to engage with and click on things like a visual element. And so D&D, I think at present, does not allow fan art, but it constantly is like sort of like going back and forth. Nope, that's not true. It does involve fan art.
That one does. It's the smaller ones that do not. The other thing I think I noticed is that some of the next biggest subreddits after just RPG, world building, and mini painting are ones related to Dungeons and Dragons. D&D memes has over 1 million subscribers. There's a 250,000 for D&D Next, which is a no fan art D&D 5th edition focused one. DM Academy, D&D Behind the Screen, also have 500,000. These are focused on dungeon mastering. And r/Dungeons and Dragons, which is just another competing D&D one, also has 500,000 subscribers.
So some data that Matt didn't have access to, or Matt, do you know about subredditstats.com?
Yeah, so that's where all this stats came from. I just scraped it from
Did you look at the user overlap, though?
Oh, I did on a couple of these. You can see if you go to subreddit stats, and we'll share this spreadsheet in the episode notes in case you want to make any of these comparisons by yourself. You can see related subreddits by users, and you can see that all of these are highly correlated.
I don't know if you noticed this when you're looking through this, Matt. Most of these are highly correlated. If you are a D&D poster, you are very likely to post on DM Academy, 3D6, D&D Next, Critical Role. Did you notice what the first non-RPG subreddit was?
I did not. What is it?
It is r/HFW, which is humanity. Fuck yeah. Which is probably the most Reddit subreddit I can think of, except maybe r/atheism.
Is it like pro-humanism? What is it? Humanity?
It's oh, I'm sorry.
Is this like inspiring posts?
Yeah, it's a writing focused subreddit welcoming all media exhibiting the awesome potential of humanity.
Okay.
We welcome sci-fi, fantasy, and all other stories with a focus on humans being awesome.
Okay, that is true. Humans are awesome. I think about that every day. Well, good for Dungeons and Dragons people being positive. I guess the data tells us that like Dungeons and Dragons players are the like golden retrievers of the role playing game community. They're popular. They're happy. They're not very smart.
That being said, the fifth most popular is like RPG horror stories. So it's not all good news. It's not all good vibes in the D&D community.
Yeah. So I found it quite interesting that RPG horror stories is forum dedicated to telling awful things that have happened at tables. This is one that if you read, it's immediately 10 stories of someone sexually harassing or being a sex pest at a table is more popular than the looking for group subreddit, yes, which is a subreddit just for people to find other people to play TTRPGs with.
Yeah, and this tracks with my experience, which is that most Reddit role players or TTRPG enthusiasts are much more interested in complaining than they are in playing games. There's a lot of gripes, and this is I think just how things end up sorting out. The people who are having a good time at their tables don't post on
post about it when I had a nice night.
Yeah,
sure.
They do sometimes, actually. There are also like very nice stories, but obviously if you had like a really good time, your first instinct may not be to like go to Reddit and be like, I had a great session. But if you had a bad time,
right, or if you're a
dipshit, which this happens a lot, there's a lot of like am I the asshole type things on D&D subreddits where you sent one of these to me this week, Matt, where somebody like,
oh yeah, that's right,
posts is like,
you could tell I was on Reddit a lot this week, yeah, for this project,
where somebody will post, I'm so annoyed at my players, they did this stupid fucking shit.
I think the one I sent you was like someone mad at their players, they're doing a one shot, and the dungeon master instructed all of the players to make a character in a fairly involved system, and no one had done it yet. And so they were mad that collectively as a group they hadn't done 10 hours of homework for their 3-hour game, and then getting mad. Don't get mad at your players for not doing assigned homework. I'm sorry, you just can't expect that that expectation, even from people who agreed to it initially.
Yeah.
You know, no one wants to do homework.
No one wants to do homework. There's some big picture stuff that I want to talk about before we get bogged down in the individual subreddits. But I think it's worth mentioning that the second biggest one is r/RPG.
Right, which is a general interest tabletop role-playing game forum.
And again, I also subscribe to this one. And one thing about RPG is that it is, like, it's not like you're not allowed to talk about D&D there, but, like, this is the place to go if you don't like D&D. If you are a D&D hater, this is the subreddit for you. And I think it's notable that it's the second largest. And you know, if you are looking for a counter opinion about Dungeons and Dragons, if you want to post about, like, what do I play instead of D&D, or what sucks about D&D, this is the place to find it. This is full of people who either have an axe to grind or greatly prefer other systems and are mad that D&D is as popular as it is.
I think that's encouraging to see. I think it's also discouraging to see that the number of subscribers to the general interest role-playing game forum is half that of D&D, right?
It
so
is.
when you encounter people in the wild who consider D&D the umbrella term for role-playing games, like that should not be surprising, right?
I have some deeply unpleasant news also to share about RPG. Also looking at the user overlap, not counting things like miniature painting, the highest non RPG subreddit that there's user overlap in is Kotaku in Action.
No,
Which well, it's the Gamergate subreddit. It's so a lot of the people in RPG are shitheads. Not all of them, but there's a higher proportion of shitheads than there are. And Matt's comment about the golden retrievers is correct. Like, the D&D subreddits, like D&D and D&D Next and Dungeons and Dragons, they're not perfect, but you're a lot less likely to encounter, like, open misogyny and like racism and people defending such things. Like, you know, they're not particularly woke or advanced, but they're just, I think, likely to be younger and just less grognardy.
Awful.
And again, terrible in kind of some other ways, but if you want to encounter the grognards, this is the subreddit for it.
Well, speaking of Dungeons & Dragons, online forums are so expansive. There's a lot of sub-forums. So if you take a look at, I've compiled all the ones that are D&D adjacent. And I think it's not surprising that the most popular D&D adjacent subreddit with over 1 million subscribers, 1.1 million, is D&D memes. In comparison, the subscribers to the one D&D one for a discussion of D&D playtest for not 6th edition is only 28,000.
Once again, I subscribed to D&D memes for a while because I wanted to see what people were saying. And I have to say, Matt, this is one of the most cursed places I have ever encountered on the internet. I have never been subjected to so many unfunny memes in my entire life. It was a step up from, like, my grandmother's Facebook page. It's nightmarish. I don't understand it. I couldn't even, like, ironically subscribe to it. It's truly abysmal. I do not want to, like, ruin anybody else's fun. I do not want to, like, yuck anyone's yum, but I'm like, this is not funny. There's no joy in this subreddit.
Ugh. Sorry, I looked at it for the actual first time.
Take a look, Matt.
Yeah, it's awful. So yeah, a bunch of shitty posting. I am impressed that the two Dungeon Master and Homebrew subreddits are actually pretty popular. D&D Homebrew, D&D IY, and D&D Behind the Screen and DM Academy all have over 100,000 subscribers. In the case of the last two, over 500,000.
One thing I want to point out about these, and it's sort of related to the greater Reddit conversation, is that DM Academy, Behind the Screen, and actually all of these, Unearthed Arcana, D&D Homebrew, are very well moderated. Sometimes aggressively so. Sometimes the moderators are pricks. I've had stuff removed from D&D Behind the Screen because I didn't do a good enough job of, I don't know, I didn't post enough beforehand or something. That's fine. The point I'm making is that these are good subreddits because the moderators are very involved in making sure that what's on there is useful and interesting, and you're not doing too much self-promotion, which is not the case with the big subreddits. So they're much smaller, but I think that they are very, very useful for what's there. I find these really great places to go and search for something specific if I'm looking for
monster stats
or adjustments to scenarios or conversions. Somebody has usually done the work. These are really good subreddits. I'm always very impressed with the niche hobby ones, as if they have moderators that are doing their jobs.
On the lowest end of the spectrum, I noticed that the subscribers for D&D subreddits related to older editions, not old school editions, but D&D 3.5 and 4E, both have 3,000 or so subscribers. Almost nothing.
I imagine that anybody who's left is still posting on Giant in the Playground
or Ian World or RPG.net. So you know, again, consider where our data is from. That's maybe not meaningful, but it does say something that there's not a lot of people playing these older editions in comparison to the newest ones.
Well, if we're talking about, let's speculate irresponsibly on like generations, right?
Yeah.
If you know, Gen X and above was like mostly uses, I don't know, old forums or Facebook or whatever, and like millennials, especially elder millennials, mostly use like Reddit, and then even younger people use, I don't know, TikTok or Discord or whatever, then it tracks, you know, it suggests that the even though there are probably still a substantial number of people playing 3.5 and 4th edition, that they are not recruiting any new players. I think that's what these subscriber counts indicate for Reddit.
Yeah. What about not talking about D&D? If you look at the general stats that we have, so subreddits not related to any one system. You know, there's a couple of these. You know, there's a lot of users for mapping software like Dungeon Draft and Incarnate. Indie RPGs does not have a lot of subscribers, only around 2,000. There's around 10,000 people subscribed to a one-page RPG design forum. And a character creation forum, 3D/3D6, has almost 200,000 subscribers. I found it interesting that one of the most popular forums that is not related to any one particular system is r/Matt Colville. So congrats to Matt Colville.
Congrats to Matt Colville. I mean, he is
one person.
He's
80,000 subscribers.
He's the Reddit audience, you know, or his audience is Reddit, so I'm not surprised. I like what I mean. It's funny that one of these is our Battle Maps, which has over 200,000 subscribers, which is great. That's a great subreddit. It's got a ton of like really good maps on it, given for free. I mean, I've found a lot of people who I then gave money to on our Battle Maps because they'll post like something for free, and then I'm like, I would happily spend $10 or $20 on your Battle Map pack. So it's a really great free resource, and it's a really great place to find indie creators to give money to.
Yeah. Again, sadly, RPG Horror Stories, a lot of subscribers. It fits the Reddit mold of the am I the asshole or relationship drama.
A lot of Reddit is walks the line of like creative writing prompts, like how realistic can I make this story about an awful person I encountered? And the thing that I am always, I'm like, how true is this? And you know, sometimes it is true and sometimes it's not. And I guess that's Reddit's whole thing is, is this real? And what does it say if it was or if it wasn't? There are definitely some RPG horror stories where I'm like, even if this is made up, I have met a person just like this, and it sounds sounds plausible, but definitely a lot of them are just trying to get upvotes by creating a elaborately annoying or difficult scenario.
What about so Rob, on this show we have reviewed not every setting that was published by Wizards of the Coast or for 5th edition, but we've reviewed a lot of them, from Eberron to Planescape, Ravnica to Ravenloft. So I combined all the subreddits for the various campaign settings for 5th edition. And I think we can both celebrate in that we have superior taste, in that the most subscribed one with over 22,000 subscribers is r/Eberron. The Eberron campaign setting may be the most popular.
I think it's safe to say that as far as settings go, or independent RPG settings, Eberron is far and away the most popular.
I did find a subreddit for the Nintir Vale setting of 4th edition, which only has 18 subscribers. So that's pretty low.
I'm shocked that you found that, though. I guess there's no barrier to starting a subreddit. So I'm not surprised that it exists. I guess I am surprised that there are 18 people who subscribe to it, though.
Yeah. So there's around 22,000 for both Eberron and the Forgotten Realms. Dragonlance and Spelljammer have 8,000 and 9,000. Dark Sun and Ravnica around 7,000. The lesser Magic the Gathering settings, Theros and Strixhaven, around 4,000 and 5,000. Planescape as a setting, not the video game, only has around 3,000. Exandria only down at 2,000.
Yeah, that's interesting to me, because we sort of skipped over the streaming stats, but the Critical Role subreddit has almost 400,000 subscribers. But this sort of
which is, of the streaming things I found, which is more than half. I only put together about 10 of these, but yeah.
Yeah. Though, again, I don't want to disparage anyone, but of what I understand that people perhaps like about Critical Role, I'm not surprised that there are not any major... There's not as much enthusiasm for Exandria as a setting. Though the fact that only 2,000 of those nearly 400,000 subscribers subscribe to Exandria is notable, I think.
This is also a case of induced demand or something like that. I noticed that the Planescape and Spelljammer subreddits had about the same number of subscribers, and then they released a Spelljammer book, and now the number of subscribers quadrupled to Spelljammer. So I imagine if we got a Planescape release, it would also be somewhat more popular, but again, it's never going to be as popular as Forgotten Realms or Eberron. I'm not surprised by that most of the Magic the Gathering campaign settings, right, which there were a lot of these released, are on the whole, relative to other things, just not very popular.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me at all. And again, speaking of induced demand, I imagine the only reason that they have subscribers at all is because when they released or around the time of their release,
these all came out with the book.
Yeah.
Speaking of other things kind of like that, and getting into something that is even less popular, right? There are a number of subreddits, I think around 20, for specific adventures released by Wizards of the Coast. And obviously we're going to expect these to be much less popular. The only person who's ever going to publish in a subreddit related to Descent to Avernus is a dungeon master who is running Descent to Avernus. So I compiled all of these, and are you surprised at what the most popular D&D 5th edition adventure is?
I'm not, and only because I've used that subreddit before. It's of course Curse of Strahd, and it has, shockingly, almost 75,000 subscribers. And I think there's...
about 40% of the adventure subreddits.
3 times as much as the next closest one. And I think that there's a good reason for this. One, I think that it's a great adventure and people like it. And 2, I think I've always liked it because I think there's a lot you can do with it. And there's just a lot to discuss, a lot of changes you can make, a lot of sort of fuzzy areas where you can add your mark. And so also it's been around for a long time. So I'm not super surprised, though. I am a little surprised at just how many it has. The next closest is Waterdeep Dragon Heist, which I again, I feel similarly about. There's a lot that you can make adjustments to. There's also a lot that sort of like needs to be done to make changes. I found a lot of good resources on Waterdeep Dragon Heist, the subreddit.
Yeah, it is interesting. So obviously, the longer adventures spin out, the more subscribers it's going to be. Subreddits don't really go down in the number of subscribers for the caveats that we've talked about before. But yeah, it is interesting that this has been the one, I think we can say, actually kind of successful Wizards adventure paths or adventure modules, right? Is Curse of Strahd, which, is highly specific, highly thematic, but it's also a complete campaign package full of everything. I guess the only one that is similar to that, which is the third most popular adventure on Reddit, is Rime of the Frostmaiden, which I think kind of fits. It's obviously completely different from Curse of Strahd, but it fits the mold of here is a all-inclusive adventure.
Yeah. Complete package, start to finish. Yeah, I do think that's worth noting.
The least popular ones tend to be the one-off ones, the compilations of independent modules, which makes sense. There's less reason to discuss those online.
Yeah.
The Golden Vault, Light of Xerxes also only has 600 subscribers. Radiant Citadel, not very popular. Some of the really older ones, not very popular, like Elemental Evil and... But I did notice there's one independent campaign-focused one, Odyssey of the Dragon Lords, which has almost 3,000 subscribers, more than Radiant Citadel and Light of Xerxes. So one day we ought to take a look at Odyssey of the Dragon Lords.
Yeah.
That's adventures. Yeah, nothing too shocking there. I think it sort of fits with the general vibe check that a lot of the ones we've talked about. Wild Beyond the Witchlight, not very popular. Call of the Netherdeep, not very popular, though it came out fairly recently. Rob, in my biggest compilation of things is I want to look at systems and things that are not D&D, non-D&D systems. So I compiled all the subreddits that were related to a role-playing game system, and if you put them all together and compare them with D&D, D&D is about 71% of the total system-related subreddits, which we're lucky enough that we do have some data that compares this. Back when we talked about this before, if you'll give me a moment for a digression,
by all means.
We talked about how on Roll20, D&D 5th edition had risen to be about 60% of the campaigns on Roll20, and this was back in like 2018 or 2019 when we last talked about this. The most recent data from Roll20, which is not very recent at all, it's fourth quarter 2021, so almost 2 years ago, shows only about 55% of campaigns being D&D 5th edition. So my hunch here is that D&D is oversampled by people who are just like, I like Dungeons & Dragons, I'm going to subscribe to this page full of fan art. But it still tells us that D&D is at least more than half of the interest. Again, 71%.
Yeah. There's sort of an age and familiarity effect. But yeah, if you tally up every single other system, generously, it's about 1 million subscribers, which is, 1/3 of what r/D&D is boasting. So I don't know if that should surprise anybody, but it definitely says something.
Yeah, the second most popular is, again, not surprising, is Pathfinder RPG with 150,000 or so, nearly 100,000 in Pathfinder 2e, 50,000 or so in a Call of Cthulhu Shadowrun, Powered by the Apocalypse, and then White Wolf RPG forums. And then the last of the big boys is the Star Wars RPG forum.
So this is not super surprising, and in fact, this sort of tracks with the Roll20 data. Consistently the third or so most popular game on Roll20 is Call of Cthulhu. I think that it's probably safe to call Call of Cthulhu the biggest non-Roll20 role-playing game in the world. Like it's consistently right there behind D&D and Pathfinder. And as we've discussed, it's in other countries substantially more popular than it is in the United States. Same with Pathfinder consistently being in the number 2 spot. Even with the 2E Pathfinder split, people are still playing that in large numbers. The others after that are really interesting. Shadowrun, I was looking at the OR report. Shadowrun was big in 2018, right. I think because they had just released or were about to release 6th edition, and people have not had a chance to become disappointed and disillusioned with it. It is no longer in that position in 2021, and I would kind of be shocked.
Roll20 0.36% of campaigns.
Yeah. And I'm very curious about what it is now. I'm almost positive that it's been supplanted by Cyberpunk.
Just so our listeners are familiar, on Roll20, as of the end of 2021, the only systems with more than a percentage of total campaigns are D&D 5th edition, uncategorized, which is nearly 20%, Call of Cthulhu, Pathfinder 2nd edition, Warhammer, various RPGs, so this is like 6 different systems, and World of Darkness, again, like 6 different systems combined.
Starfinder is big too. I wonder if one thing that's very interesting, sorry, that I wanted to mention, is that showing up pretty high on both the subreddit lists and the OR report is a game called Tormenta, which is a Brazilian RPG. I don't know anything about it because I don't read or speak Portuguese. But if anybody has found a English translation of this game, I would be so extremely delighted and grateful if you could send it to us so we can review it. It has, again, it's interesting because clearly this is very popular in Brazil, and just on the strength of that popularity alone, it is showing up in huge numbers. So it must be, again, proportionally tremendously popular in Brazil.
Right. We also know Reddit has a very skewed bias towards English language subreddits.
Yes.
So I saw the Tormenta data. I saw the Das Schwarze Age, which is a German language RPG. And these numbers are pretty small, and I have to think that they are underrepresented. I would love to do an episode one day on all of the best translations we can get of all of our non-English RPGs. So Pathfinder's the second most popular, followed by Call of Cthulhu, and then Shadowrun. The next after that, if we're moving into non-systems, is Powered by the Apocalypse, White Wolf, Star Wars RPG, Starfinder. Then I was, surprised, or pleasantly surprised, at what the most popular of the best of the rest is. Monster of the Week, Blades in the Dark, Tormenta, Cyberpunk Red, OSR, 40K RPG, Lancer has 21,000 subscribers. Savage Worlds has 18,000. Dungeon World, Fate, Mutants and Masterminds, GURPS, World of Darkness, and Traveler with over 10,000. The other two with more than 10,000 are Delta Green and Morkborg. Sadly, Genesis, as a generic RPG, has less than 10,000.
There's good communities for most subreddits for most indie RPGs on Reddit. Like it's again, they are much smaller in subscriber count, but they are substantial, right? 20,000 people, 10,000 people, even if only a handful of them, even if only a relatively small percentage are participating, that's a good community. That's a solid number of people. And I have been on these subreddits for Cyberpunk and for Blades in the Dark, looking for resources or advice, and they're useful. They're really good.
Yeah. One could even argue that there are some role-playing games, that are maybe better designed. You have to ask less questions of people online. So, just because we've put the numbers here of the Mothership RPG only having 6,500 subscribers, maybe you don't need to ask that many questions about Mothership. It all kind of makes sense.
Right.
I don't know. I'm just joking.
No, I think there might be something to that. I mean, I don't know what I would ask in the Blades in the Dark subreddit, because I think the game does a pretty good job. Like, it's an interesting place to go to see like what other people do in their games.
Right. I like seeing other people's maps at the end of their campaign of all that.
Yeah, but I don't actually need like advice or help as much as I do when I'm running D&D, because I know what to do. Like, it makes sense. It's all there in the book.
Rob, with all of these other things compiled, are there any that really surprise you? I mean, I was pretty surprised at kind of the low numbers for things like the One Ring or maybe the Cortex RPG system. I wasn't surprised that there's only, for example, 600 subscribers for the Torg Eternity RPG.
I'm a little surprised. Again, this sort of matches with what we saw about Exandria. I'm a little surprised at how few people are subscribed to the Candela Obscura subreddit. This is Critical Role's, or what's the name of their production company? I can't remember.
Darrington Press.
Thank you. It's Critical Role's new system, which we're going to talk about it once we know a little bit more, but it appears to be a... Okay,
There's a play test out.
I'm gonna say it's a hack. I'm just gonna say it's a hack of Blades in the Dark. How involved of a hack it is kind of remains to be seen, but it looked interesting. They played like one game of it or a couple games of it. I'm actually really looking forward to getting my mitts on it to review it. But I'm a little shocked that of the 400,000 people subscribed to the Critical Role subreddit, that only 800 of them are interested at all in Candela Obscura. I think that says something possibly kind of depressing and disappointing about the state of the TTRPG community, but who knows? We'll see what happens when it actually comes out.
Right. It's not out, and of course, all subreddits have a bias towards how long they've been out. And this is maybe the one that came out when Reddit shut down or something like that. So
maybe you're right. Maybe
there's
that
not
has
really a
something to do
couple, but even with those caveats, it's still a very, very low number for indie systems.
I was pleased to see Lancer so high. I think Lancer has a really strong internet community in general. It's not I think numbers wise a very it doesn't compare to some of the big RPGs, but I think that it is I think it has a very dedicated and involved fan base. So that was interesting to see, and I was kind of pleased to see that. I think that it's notable that Shadowrun and White Wolf are so high in terms of subreddit subscribers. Yeah. And I think that has to do with just how long they've been around and the type of audience, because I'm not sure that reflects the number of people playing quite as well as some of the other subreddits. I think it's just these are people who are somehow invested in these two systems.
Yeah. One thing that this I think was a little illuminating is I tried to make a quick comparison between subreddit subscribers and amount raised on Kickstarter. So, Kickstarter is a go-to place for so many, not only independent games, but, games made by very established game studios. I think, again, the subreddit data has so many caveats, it might not be worthwhile, and this could be incorrect, right? Because of recency and, people, it takes people a long time to get a game together. Something on Kickstarter is usually pretty recent, but millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars on Kickstarter does not actually always translate into lots of people interested in talking about your game in the future, right? Because that's what subreddit is, right? People talking about it. So, for example, Lancer raised $400,000 and change not too long ago. They have 21,000 subscribers on their subreddit. Coyote and Crow, an RPG that you reviewed for a show and liked a lot, raised over $1 million and has 247 subscribers.
Yeah, this was the one thing I was going to comment on. I don't know what this means, because I think that from what I can tell of the reviews, and everyone's been very pleased with Coyote and Crow, and I think there are people playing it, but I'm not sure what that sort of internet community looks like. Clearly, they're not, if they exist somewhere, they're not on Reddit.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's notable that Lancer has so many subscribers and a relatively low. I mean, not 400,000 is a lot of money, but like compared to everybody else on this list, it's the lowest.
Right. Another comparison: the Mothership RPG, funded by Kickstarter, and the Avatar Legends RPG, also funded by Kickstarter, have similar numbers of subreddit subscribers, around 6,500 each. Mothership raised 1.5 million. Avatar Legends raised 9.5 million. You know, that extra $8 million doesn't get you any more people talking about your game online.
If we wanted to dig into this a little bit, and we don't have to, but I just sort of like want to, again, another data point is that of those $9 million, right, that represents 81,000 backers for Avatar Legends.
Ah, right.
For $1 million at Coyote and Crow, that's 16,000 backers. So again, those are very big numbers, but that doesn't necessarily correlate precisely to people involved. Now, one would...
But for example, for Mothership, there was only 15,000 backers for Mothership, which is what, a much smaller percentage of 80,000.
Exactly.
And they have similar numbers of people talking about it and playing it. So,
well, and what is it? Lancer had 9,000 backers, right? So like, so this is worth noting, right? They have
there are more subscribers than backers. The only one of these that I think is true.
So, you know, a tiny percentage of both Avatar Legends and Coyote Crow went to the subreddit, and a huge proportion of people who backed, and then also people who were interested, went to the Lancer subreddit. Yeah. I don't want to like say anything concrete about this. My feeling is, if I were going to make a sort of like a prescription or a prediction, is that Lancer RPG probably will persist longer than these other games. It will have more players.
It's growing organically. I mean, that I think is a concrete thing you can say. There are more subscribers than backers. That means people have picked it up.
People have picked it up. They're going to play it. I think we will continue to see Lancer grow and evolve and like join the ranks of other persistent third-party RPGs, indie RPGs, where all of these others, it's very questionable.
Right. It remains to be seen. Some of these came out very recently, but for example, one that came out really
on here. I will not read the Root RPG. You will not make me read the Root RPG.
This is a thing that made me like, why did they do this? So Rob, you're actually a fan of this board game.
I love this board game. Yeah. I think it is one of the best designed board games I've ever played. I don't know why they made an RPG.
A Powered by the Apocalypse RPG, no less.
Makes me so mad.
600,000, $500,000 raised. There are 455 subscribers to the Root RPG subreddit. So that's I mean,
if I were going to say one thing, I will say it has a really cool art style where it's got a bunch of like cute bunnies and woodland animals, but they're doing like horrible violence to each other. It's very like if you were just going to like back something based on the strength of its art alone, Root is a good choice. That is the only thing I can say about why you would give money to a Root RPG. I just don't think it translates. I don't get it.
There are so many other woodland creature RPGs too.
Yeah.
I didn't think anyone was like, I really love the Root setting. I mean, it's a board game.
It's a board game. There's a forest. It's vaguely like, you can definitely like vaguely paint it as sort of like revolutionary socialist, and I have, but like that's still like it's not really, it's just like there's a marquee and there's a revolutionary woodland proletariat. But like, again, it's a board game. There's no lore there. There's no there's no reason to back an RPG.
Yeah, so less than 10% subscribers to their subreddit among the backers on the thing. So, and again, this one like hasn't, I think, even come out in its hardcover form, so maybe we're picking unfairly. But I think here's our general takeaway from this that may or may not be true, but I think it's a possible, probable inference we could make, is that money raised for a Kickstarter does not translate to popularity down the road and people persisting and playing your game.
And
which is, I don't think that's controversial to say. I think everyone knows this.
And I don't know that, and it depends entirely on what your goal is. I would say that I would be willing to make a prediction, right? That it is more notable that Lancer has more subscribers to its subreddit than backers than how much money they raised. And I think that I would be comfortable saying that we are more likely to see in 3-5 years, like a Lancer 2.0 or a major Lancer supplement or a big time Lancer actual play. Then
they've already made a spin-off game for like ships and stuff that is coming out. So they're continuing to make settings and publish adventures. A cool friend of mine is got me play testing one in the next couple months. I'm very excited for this. But actually, I mean, it might need to cut that anyway.
But yeah, I think it just means we'll see more of it.
Yeah, if I wasn't super thorough in finding, because it's impossible to search for things on Kickstarter. It's really annoying.
Yeah,
and they don't have a specific TTRPG channel. But if anyone can find me another TTRPG Kickstarter that has more subscribers on any social media thing like Reddit than they had backers, just like Lancer, then I will say that one was also successful.
Yeah. If we wanted to be really annoyingly thorough, we could also compare, I don't know, Twitter subscribers or something like that.
I don't think that counts in the same way.
I don't know that really matters. The last thing that I did for this, and this is a very tiny data point and not important because it was way more difficult than I thought to dig through. But I was just wanted to take a look at sort of the most popular RPG Discords. And part of this is difficult because there's no like standard tagging system and sometimes there's overlap. But unsurprisingly, there were a bunch of big-ish D&D Discords, Discord and Dragons, Crit or Quit. Actually, Crit or Quit is, I think, general. And then like D&D World. The only perhaps interesting thing is maybe the fourth biggest that I could find was one called Imperio, which was... or Imperio RPG, which was, I think, a Call of Cthulhu Portuguese language, like Brazilian server. It has nearly 13,000 subscribers. The largest Discord and Dragons has 24,000. I think that this is probably less useful because Discord is much more fragmented than even Reddit is. But if I had more time, this is something that I would like to take a look at more because a lot of people are migrating to Discord. A lot of younger people start first at Discord rather than on Reddit. And I imagine that there are actually probably big D&D communities within other servers. And that would be a lot harder to sort of dig into. But you can have a channel or you can have a sub-community in a much larger Discord channel. But I did not have time to... I don't even know how you would begin doing that data analysis, but it would, I think, be interesting to do.
Right. I think there's like over 1,000 people online right now for the OSR Discord server. I don't know how you look at the total number of users, but yeah, there's... Yeah. Discord is, I think, the if you worked for Discord and you could mine everyone's data, that would be very fascinating.
And maybe someday they'll put out something like the OR report, but probably not. But
no, I don't think they have any incentive to ever do that.
To ever do such a thing.
And then this gets to the reason why we have to come at this problem sideways. Since the OR report hasn't published in over 2 years, we don't really have a lot of data besides, there's a retail survey that says what's the most popular, book on their shelves, and every answer is always just like D&D 5th edition. There's not a lot of ways to figure out, what people are actually playing, and this is just as best as we can get as an approximation to what people are interested in. Thankfully, the cool thing about TTRPGs is you don't have to log in and log a thing when you play a session of a game. But it also means we don't really know what people are playing. But here's a guess. I can say people are playing Lancer more than they are playing the Root RPG, or
that's a guess,
with some confidence, or Kids on Bikes.
There's an interesting anecdote that I read this week, and I don't know how true this is, about the top music charts. That in up until I think about 91, that the way that they compiled the top selling or top performing artists or whatever was they just would call record shops and get their numbers. And then around 91 it switched to being automatic based on ISBNs scanned or something like that. And almost overnight things like country and hip hop just absolutely rocketed up the charts because either consciously or subconsciously the record shop owners were underreporting those numbers. And
right. They're the kind of high fidelity music snobs who
they're like, that's not real
country
music, or
and
that's
hip-hop.
not rock, that's not whatever. And again, I don't know how true that is, but it does perhaps it matches some other things that I have read about, again, how self-reporting works. And so one wonders, I know why, D&D is always going to be cagey about their sales numbers, because why wouldn't they be? But I really would love to know, I wish there was some way to tell truly how many people are playing each game. Like, we know D&D is dominant, and regardless of whether or not you like it, cards on the table, I've always said that it's bad for any one game to be so dominant. But the question that Matt and I are always trying to fruitlessly solve is, like, how dominant is it? Is it 90% of the market, or is it only 70% of the market?
Right.
And hard to tell.
I mean, I would, if I had to guess, like, if I said, okay, well, what is the number of games actually being played? I would say somewhere between 50 and 80% of the games being played this week are Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And that's a range that is, from if it's only 50%, which it could be, right? That's close to pretty much what the Roll20 numbers from 2 years ago tell us. That's not so bad. If it's 80%, that's fairly unhealthy for an industry.
Yeah. My hope is that it's closer to 50. My fear is that it's in fact, not so.
Right. Because you can say that someone who is savvy enough to know about games that are not D&D 5th edition is much more likely to play on Roll20 or join a subreddit. Whereas people who play Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition I only get online on Facebook and Instagram and fuck the internet. They're much smarter and happier.
Right. Okay. Well, I hope you all found this interesting. I do. So I hope you did.
Link in the show notes to our hastily organized spreadsheet. If you find an error, please write Rob directly.
Yeah,
but
send
not
it to
us.
me. I was the one responsible for QCing this, so it's my fault. That's not true. I didn't QC it at all.
It was me. But if you do have a legitimate question or comment, you can write us at dmofnone@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and keep rolling them dice.